Mixing Adventures. My name is Lisa Keegan and this week is all about fermenting in your Thermomix. I thought we'd start with an amazing shrub. Now, the shrub recipe on here, interestingly, doesn't have fermenting, and traditionally a shrub is a fermented drink. These days you'll often hear shrubs associated with cocktails and things like that. But traditionally it was a way to, use up your leftover fruit at the end of a season or when it was going soft or not ripe even on your bench. So today I'm going to show you my shortcuts to make this in the Thermomix, including the really good fermenting practices, which then enhance our gut bacteria and all that good stuff without getting too technical. So into a clean bowl, we're going to add, first of all, our pears. So as much as I said I'm going to base it on this, I will be coming back in 8 hours after the fermentation to finish the recipe because I want to ferment them. This recipe does not ferment. So let's jump out of this recipe, push the little house. There we go. And we're going to put, first of all, into our bowl some pears. And I'll weigh them for you guys. You know what? Normally I don't though. So if I was doing this for my family, I just chuck them all in. This screen is really glary. I can't see. I would normally just chuck them all in and wing it, but I'll do some measurements for you guys. So I've got some pears. Some of them are yucky ripe and some of them are not ripe. So we're going to put them into the bowl. They're just roughly, I did take the core out today. I don't always. Okay, I don't know why I did today. But anyway, 450 grams. There we go. We're now going to put a little bit of sugar on top. It's not much, probably about 30 grams. Let's take it up to, for an even number. Look at it bouncing there because my floor's moving. Let's make it up to 500 grams. So let's just put in 40 grams. Now, why we do this is it actually feeds the fermenting. Okay, so the sugar is what feeds it and allows it to ferment. So we're going to now put the lid on and we're actually going to dice this down for a second. It's not going to take long. It's going to be a bit like a chunky coleslaw texture. So we'll go up to our speed 5 and I'm going to do it for probably 2 seconds before I check it. So up to speed 5. You know what? I actually feel like it's done. Let's have a look. It's actually not to do in this case with what or how fine it needs to be. It actually wouldn't matter if it's super fine or not. It's actually to do with just getting it smaller. So the smaller it is, the quicker it ferments because the sugar is coating the outside of the fruit. So that is beautiful. So what I've got now is diced up pear. I'm glad I didn't go longer than that. It just would have got finer and we could have ended up with more like a slush, which is fine because we're actually going to push this through and take the juice out of it after 8 hours, but I didn't really want slush. So we've got that covered in sugar now. We've also got it diced down. So now we put it into a ceramic or a glass dish that fits in your varoma. Okay, so it needs to be clean because we are promoting bacteria growth, but it's good bacteria growth. Okay, so there's a difference. So we're going to put this in and then we're going to put this on to ferment. So I wish I had brought in my handy spatula, which I didn't. So I'm going to pause and I'll be back in a second with the spatula. Okay, back. So we're just going to put this into our bowl and then that's all we're actually going to do as far as the chopping goes and the sugar goes. It just actually needs to sit now and ferment for the 8 hours. Now, the great thing about using a Thermomix to ferment, well, if you've got the TM6 at least, is the ability to fast track it. You could put this in a warm spot for 2 days to do the same job, but the ability of the Thermomix to hold it at a regulated temperature the whole time means that this makes it a really super quick process. So now into the bowl, we want about 250 grams of water, which just comes up halfway up the blades. I'm not worried about the sugar and residue in there. It is only an 8 hour ferment, so it's actually not, yogurt's minimum of 8 hours, usually 10, 12, and actually you can do it for longer. It just gets more sour and more good bacteria in it. A dash of something acidy because this in here is going to stop it going rusty in the blades. And then lid on. And we're going to create a little bit of steam in there. And it's not much. This is what I love. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our fermentation mode. Now, if you don't have a TM6 and you don't have fermentation mode, you're like, Lisa, can't do this. Warm spot. Go put it in your bathroom under a heat lamp. If your garage is warm and you have a car in there and the boot's warm, put it in the boot. It does need to sit for 8 hours. Don't take it for a drive, okay? But somewhere toasty, roasty, warm. And I mean, if you don't have the Thermomix to rely on, leave it longer. Leave it for 12, leave it for 24. You can even leave it for 2 days, okay? It will start having little bubbles. It'll smell fermented. That's what we want. We want a fermented product because that is growing the good bacteria, which is feeding the good stuff in our system. So we're going to put this on top. We're going to put the Varoma lid on top. Oh, I need to cover it. Now, normally I put the actual lid of the container on and it's got an air vent. And I have turned my cupboards inside out and I, sadly, cannot find it. So I have to drag out my Glad wrap, which I never use because I really hate the fact that it's a one-use only thing. And I'm going to have to use that. We've had that Glad wrap, thankfully, for a very long time. I never want to have to buy Glad wrap. All right, so just covering it, stop any moisture falling back in. Lid on, and now we're going to use our fermentation mode. Now it is on the bottom of your screen unless you've rearranged things. Let's just give you a wiggle this way. There we go, fermentation. It gives you a bit of a blurb. Let's just close that down. There's a little close button on the top right corner. Now we want to go a bit hotter. So we've got 8 hours. We actually want it to go to, can we go hotter? No, we must go 70. I'm dreaming it. I was thinking we go 80. No, we can't. And then we're going to spin that dial and off it goes. We can go lesser though. So sometimes there's things like yogurts that you'll make in the bowl that actually hold your yogurt in the bowl at 37 degrees. So that 70 can actually go to lesser temperature, but 70 is the hottest it can go. So 8 hours, we'll come back then and then we'll continue on with the pear shrub recipe with our beautiful fermented pears, so we get that really good gut bacteria in our food, which is just so good for your health. All right, so if you don't ferment yet, let's get you fermenting because it is really good for your health. You guys have seen me make sauerkraut before. You've seen me make yogurt, although this week there's another yogurt, a drinking yogurt I'm going to share with you, which looks really cool. At the moment I've got kvass on at home, which is a beautiful beetroot tonic, really good for a lot of health benefits in it. So lots of things that you can be doing that the Thermomix makes super quick and easy so that you don't have to buy it, because if you buy it, you're going to pay the price for convenience. It's just too expensive. So make it because you've got the tool to do so. We've also got kombucha, that constant brew of that as well. So, and if you want any info on how to do those things, of course, have a conversation with me. Email me, text me, whatever it might be, because I'm happy to give you that information on how we do it and things like that. So I can't wait this week to inspire you with some fermenting in your Thermomix and show you how easy it is. I will be putting the tips in for those of you who have a 31 or a 5 or a thermo cooker and you don't have fermentation mode. I'll show you how as well. So can't wait to do this week with you. I'll be back in 8 hours to show you how we then turn this into the beautiful drink it's going to be. And then we let it do its thing again. But that's right. We'll see you then. Bye for now. Okay, welcome back. So we've just fermented these here and they're done. They're actually, they smell fermented. They look a little off colored because it's just sugar on them. Remember, we didn't put an acid on them, or vinegar? Acid, I don't know. We didn't put some, the apple cider vinegar or lemon juice on them to stop them browning. I'm not fussed because we're actually gonna squeeze the juice out of these shortly. But what we're gonna do now is actually now kick off the pear shrub recipe, and we're gonna make kind of like a syrup or a tonic, you might say, which then once it's cooled, we'll put the juice from these into it. And then we'll let it ferment. If we put it in while it's hot, it'll kill off the beneficial bacteria, which we don't want. So let's get started on the pear shrub. You'll find this on Cookie Do. There's also a raspberry shrub, which is kind of the combination of where I've developed this recipe over time, is actually the combination of the two, because the raspberry one, you actually do ferment it as part of that process. You'll see that they crush the berries, they put the sugar on it, they ferment it. Then they make this part, okay? So first things first, some sugar, okay? So it needs to feed the bacteria. That's what we're doing here. We're creating a really good environment for that. All right, a bit short, doesn't matter. Okay, next up we need some vinegar in there. So apple cider vinegar is what you want to use. One day I'm gonna make it myself. I do have sultana vinegar on. Excited to one day give some apple cider vinegar a go. Next, now we're going to cook this up. So this is going to warm up. It's going to become quite syrupy. It's got 5 minutes, 100 degrees. It'll dissolve that sugar, and we will return. We're going to add some vanilla to it. And actually in this time, I am going to grab my nut milk bag, which is over my simmering basket, and I am going to strain out the juice from this. So I have it for later. As I said, this has got to cool first anyway. We can't do it all until it's cool, but I'm going to get some juices out. So I'll see you in 5 minutes time. Okay, so it's dissolved the sugar in there, and in that time I squeezed out the juices that I could. So we had about 400 grams of pears, I think, from memory. We diced them down, we put the sugar on, right? And then let them ferment. And really, mine actually fermented. They fermented for the, was it 8 hours? I think we did in the Thermomix, but it's actually then sat on the bench for probably about 20 hours, you know, overnight. So it was fine. So this is the thing, when you're fermenting and you're creating the good stuff, it's actually okay to go over. All it does is actually create more beneficial stuff. As long as you don't go to like a week or two or something random like that, like another, 6, 8 hours, doesn't really matter. Here's the pears. We're not going to put that in. This is hot now. This is, I can't see the temperature now, but it's hot. So we're going to skip that. It does say cardamom pods. I'm going to skip that out. We're just going to put vanilla in ours. So can you see the steam come out the top? There you go. That's how hot it is. I'm going to skip that because the thing is you can play with this. You can play with your flavours as much as you like. And we really like pear and vanilla. That's a combo that's just amazing. I don't have a vanilla bean that I want to use. I'm just going to use my beautiful vanilla paste. You'll find that recipe on Cookie Do. About a teaspoon. Okay, in it goes. It's just sugar, water, and a vanilla bean. So it's pretty easy. I think there's a rice malt syrup in it, but you could use glucose syrup if you prefer. You could even use honey, I reckon. Insert the measuring cup, and it's got 20 minutes. It's going to cook off. So it's actually not going to need all this time, really, because what it would normally be doing is cooking the pears. We don't want to cook the pears, because if we cook those pears, we lose the fermenting properties. So we are actually going to skip past this step. And this is the beauty of guided cooking. You get to actually be in control of it. So I'm just going to let this stir through for a second to get that vanilla mixed in. I don't want it to go to 90 degrees. It's hot. The sugar's dissolved. I've created that syrup in there. And now, just stir in that vanilla. I'm going to push the stop button, and we're going to go next. Now it's set aside to allow it to cool, and then ordinarily they would transfer it to a sterilized jar, place in the refrigerator to allow it to flavors to develop. This is where, once this is cool, we're going to put the two together. We'll put it in a jar and we'll put it aside. And this is actually making a concentrate that you would ordinarily then add to soda water, if you're into making it like these days, you hear Shrubs as cocktails, okay? But traditionally they were not cocktails. So let's just come back. Once this is cool, I'll put it together, I'll put it in the jar, and I'll show you that process. So we will see you again in probably an hour's time to show you this next step. I'd love to know as you're watching along though, have you made shrubs before in your Thermomix? Is that something you're familiar with? Or is even a shrub something you're familiar with? Or is this a brand new concept to you? I'd love to know about it. So comment below, and remember to like and subscribe and share these videos with your friends and family who you feel would benefit from learning about fermenting. Maybe they already do it, maybe they've dabbled in it, maybe they're buying it and it's costing them a fortune for this good stuff, and they could do it themselves. So I'd love you to share these videos with them. I really do want to make sure people understand it's so much easier. It can be easier, it can be cheaper than we often think it is. So, see you soon. Okay, it's been sitting for a little, probably over an hour, and this is actually room temperature now, which is what you want. Anything a bit like yogurt, anything over 40 degrees will kill our cultures, and we don't want that. So I'm just going to take the lid off. I did think afterwards, after we went off last time, I could have taken it straight out if you needed it and put it straight into the jar, and it could have cooled that way as well, so it doesn't really matter. But you can see it's just a sugar syrup. I may have not allowed enough space in my jar. Whoops. By the way, another note is with this recipe, don't throw out your pear. Okay, you can now use this in a bread, as in place of dried fruit, in a banana loaf, those sorts of things. So don't throw that out. You could dehydrate it as well, which would be absolutely beautiful. So don't let that go to waste. So there is the sugar syrup, and now this is our juice. I'm not sure if I'm going to fit it all in there. What I might do, I'd actually rather the juice in it, so I'm just going to tip a little bit out. Now you actually, to use this, what we'll do is we'll ferment it for another 2 days before going and putting it to use. That's a little close on capacity, isn't it? We want it to ferment for a couple of days. Let's put that there out the way. and really let it carbonize. Now, ideally, to ferment, you want a space in the jar, okay? Because it's going to carbonize. It's going to show bubbles in there at times, and it's going to start tasting a little bit different, okay? It's going to get more of a soured taste to it, which is what we want, because those the beautiful juices in there are actually going to eat up the sugar, and that's going to ferment further for a couple of days. So you can see here, even the other recipe, the original one that isn't a proper fermented one, it says to actually transfer and allow it to sit in the refrigerator for 2 days for the flavor to develop. And then it says after 2 days, strain it. Okay, so we've already done all that straining step. Discard your solids. And then to serve it, 50 grams of shrub, and then with whatever mix you want, water, soda water. If you're going down the other stream of alcohol and things like that, you've got that option as well. So what I'm going to actually do is to promote more fermentation in this, more good bacteria, 2 days on the shelf, a bit like I do with my kvass. Okay, that sits on a shelf for 2 to 5 days, sometimes 7, and then you put it in the fridge. So I'm going to do similar with this, where it sits out for 2 to 3 days, and then I'll put it in the fridge, put the lid on it in the fridge. So in that time when it's out, the lid will be loose, okay, or I might even, if I put a cheesecloth on it, would be the other option. I'll actually, I think, take a little bit out of this now, 50 mils out, put it with some soda water, have a taste test before it ferments. It will be super sugary, right, because we have a lot of sugar in it. But that sugar will actually get eaten up over time, and it will neutral out. It'll become quite that sweet, sour, tangy, which is what we want in a shrub. So loose lid or a cheesecloth, 2 days on the counter, into the fridge, and then use it as you want. And in that fridge, as long as it doesn't go moldy, it's going to last like indefinitely, because you've got this beautiful fermented thing. You're storing it in the fridge, ready for whenever you want it. So that is a fermented pear shrub made in your Thermomix. Now, if you're wanting guided recipes to follow, as I made mention already, there's a raspberry fermented one, and obviously this is the pear one. So you can kind of mix the two together. And you can ferment anything, okay? You can make a shrub out of any fruit you like. So that's all you need, is that sugar and the time to let it sit and start that process over. So I hope you're feeling inspired by giving this a go in your Thermomix. I can't wait to hear what you think as you try these new recipes. If you've got feedback, reach out. I'd love to support you, get the most out of your Thermomix. I'm going to scoop off 50 grams of this. Then I'm going to put the lid loosely on, leave it on the shelf, and then put it in the fridge. But give it a go in your Thermomix, and I can't wait to hear your feedback. Thanks for joining me today and learning more about your Thermomix and getting further inspired and confident. Let me know if I can support you in any way. But until next time, take care, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.